Despite the many challenges that this year has brought to our lives, it will be insightful to hear from leaders joining us today about the future of these institutions and what that will mean both for businesses and for students in the post-COVID world. As we begin our programs, we would like to thank our sponsors, Chevron, Greenberg Traurig, and Microsoft, and remind everyone to keep yourselves on mute throughout the program to avoid any interference. Towards the end of the session, we will open the room for Q&A. Please send your questions to Ariana Molina. You will see her in the chat, and she'll add you to the queue of questions. We really want this to be as interactive as possible. It is such a unique opportunity to have deans of some of the best business schools throughout Latin America with us, so take advantage. This is such an important conversation and really for the future, which will be changing ongoing. Finally, for today's program, and in fact, for the past few years, we've had the great opportunity of collaborating with the College of Business at Florida International University. So let me start the conversation by introducing two people that I admire greatly. Dean Joan Lee from the FIU College of Business in Miami, and Jerry Haar, who we know well, Professor and Executive Director for the Americas at the FIU College of Business. Welcome both. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful in putting this together, and the floor is yours, so welcome.
Thank you, Maria, and good afternoon from Miami. Just like Maria said, my name is Joanne Lee, and I'm the Dean of the College of Business at Florida International University, and we fondly refer ourselves as FIU Business. And today I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Professor Jerry Haar, and the Executive Director for the Americas in the school, and a very warm welcome and shout out to many of our colleagues across the country and continent who make time to be with us today. FIU Business is proud to be a corporate member of the Council of the Americas and delighted to partner with you and with them for this roundtable discussion with four outstanding deans of Latin America's most prestigious business schools. Allow me to introduce them to you. Veneta, Andonova, Universidad de los Andes in Colombia, Peter Yamakawa, and Dean of Business of ESAN, University in Peru, Alberto Trejos of INCAE in Costa Rica, and Ignacio de la Vega of Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. The theme of our panel session today is the future business schools in the Americas in a post-pandemic era. Needless to say, business schools all over the world have been heavily impacted broadly and deeply as a result of the coronavirus. And those impacts will be long-lasting on the design, content, and delivery of business education. Yet many of the changes post-COVID-19 will be the result of economic, social, and technological transformation that have been evolving rapidly during the last decade. So I'm going to make it fun today to have Professor Haar and I to pose a lot of a series of questions and ask our panelists to address and shed some light on the current state and future outlook of business education in the Americas. To make it more fun, we're going to a first name basis. So Jerry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dean Lee, or may I call you Joanne?
Of course.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to co-moderate this panel with the four distinguished deans from Unidad, INCAE, EGADE, Tec de Monterrey, and ESAN. Our aim today is to make this panel fast-paced and engaging with ample time for questions and answers, of course. So let's get started. Let's begin with a general question for all of you, and that is, what do you believe are the greatest challenges facing business schools in Latin America today, and how is your particular business school confronting such challenges? I'd like to ask Veneta to start it off.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'd like first to thank Maria, Joanne, and you for the generous invitation to be part of this conversation. And without further ado, I will proceed to answering your question. I think the biggest challenge in front of us is to be a trusted partner in a very ample debate that essentially stretches the long-established domains of what is understood as the public and the private sphere in Latin America. What the pandemic has caused is a lot of doubts and experimentation as to what the public policy should be in many spheres. For example, we have for many years agreed that we needed a very broad competitiveness policies for the overall economy, for every sector, a playground for businesses. Now we are changing completely the conversation, and we're talking about sector-specific interventions. And in the corporate domain in Latin America, what we have observed for many years is a rather marked power distance. For example, what we see in currently is a rather common strategy to basically flip the compensation pyramid and have the lowest paid employees retain as much as possible of their compensation packages, where the CEO gives up completely his or her compensation. So these are really big changes in terms of corporate culture and the narrative regarding the public policy. And it is up to us, as a school of management, to be the partner in these debates, basically writing a new social contract for the region.
Okay, how about Ignacio? What do you think? How would you respond to Veneta's comments?
Thank you. Thank you, Council of the Americas, for inviting EGADE. And let me get straight into a few answers. Supporting, of course, what my colleague Veneta just mentioned, I believe we do have a few challenges ahead. One of them is survival. Let's face it, business and schools needed before the pandemic a deep reinvention of our value proposition. And today this is even bigger, but pretty sure that the colleagues here, the business schools in Latin America, the leading institutions know the way to reinvent. This is not the first crisis we're facing. And my answer would be, how do we, let's say, came renew after this pandemic crisis? And I would say we need to expand our societal impact. We need to lead the redefinition of a more conscious and sustainable way of doing business and creating definitely the social value for our societies that Veneta was required. And being in the business of education in this part of the world is completely experienced to what you guys experience in, let's say, the States or in Europe. Our priorities definitely need to change. I mentioned survival, a couple more. How do we contribute also to reinventing the future of our industry, education? And finally, what is the impact of what we are experiencing today? Some of you were lucky to drop kids in Boston, and they might start in a hybrid model. At least in Mexico, we're fully aligned. We started at Tecnológico de Monterrey in EGADE on March 12th, and we remain online. And we've been reinventing also the delivery channel and our pedagogy to sort of cope with these circumstances. What about the future? How are we going to operate as business schools? So a few ideas I left. Thank you.
Thanks. How about you, Alberto? Alberto.
Oh, wait. We have hi to everybody. I think we have challenges inside and out, as Ignacio was rightly pointing out, right? I mean, this is a very difficult moment to operate a school. In our case, I mean, because we serve in a collection of very small countries. In almost every program we have, 80% of the students are foreigners. So shutting down the airport simply meant that we had to reinvent how we do this. We had to go, I mean, every program that was not online already went online, and that was a big challenge. And obviously the economy right now doesn't help anybody, but I think that the main challenges are outside. In our case, over the years, because this is not Central America's first crisis, we have played a role at the fact that we have the year of the private sector and we have the year of the government, and we sometimes are the only bridge available in the national debate. And And therefore, we felt that we had to not only give content to people in different areas about how to face this, but also help come to agreements on policies to deal with the pandemic. But I think that more importantly, this poses a huge challenge outwards for the future. First of all, society is going to change as a consequence of this. Has changed already. A lot of technologies that were theoretical have been applied. A lot of changes that were going slowly have accelerated dramatically. And in a different society, the content of business school has to be different, and the role that we play has to be different. And therefore, we not only have to help society look at its future, but we also have to adapt our own programs to be a better response to what students are going to need. And I think that in itself is a beautiful challenge that we all have to face. And I'm guessing that much of what we're going to do today is talk about that.
Okay, well put. Peter Yamakawa, your perspective, please.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. We had been in a survival period because we had to move online classes in a very short time. And the expectations now are very high. So what is the next about technology? And now we have seen in the education sector that technology is more than ever. We are seeing many disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, holograms, augmented reality, among others. All this technology will be part of the teaching and operational support of the school, besides of the recession, besides the pandemic. Another challenge for us, I think, that there is more competition. The competition has increased more than ever. We are now having new business models. We have MOOCs, other online platforms like edX, Udemy, Coursera at very low cost. And recently, it's important to mention that Google aimed to break into the education sector. And I think this is the beginning of the story. Google probably can change the rules of the game in the education sector. Another challenge for me, besides the recession, besides the problems that we are having now, the adoption of lifelong learning. In Peru and in many Latin America business schools, I think that this is it's just started. At the ESAN, for example, we have created 4 years ago the Career Service Center to establish a better relationship with our business community and alumni. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Jerry.
I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic, Jared. These are very good background information to understand from 4 outstanding deans. Now, as a business dean, I'm dying to ask this question and come to the question that I want, and Jerry can punish me later. So here's the question to my 4 deans. Now, Jeffrey Pfeiffer at Stanford sees many business schools going out of business and less popularity of a pure online learning, whereas Jerry Kent Data of Harvard sees a hybrid model combining first-rate online learning with in-class instruction as the most popular and lasting form of graduate business education. I want to hear from these 4 deans. What do they think about the 2 thoughts right here? So let me start with Veneta. Someone will have to unmute Veneta. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So I would definitely see my vision and the vision at my university and the School of Management more aligned with the Harvard's perspective on the future. We do believe that there is a clear advantage in the online format for certain contexts and for certain purposes. In terms of providing content, online can be a very effective way of exposing our graduate community to content. However, the networking aspect and the hands-on aspects are definitely the two dimensions on which we are working, mainly through in-class, or let's put it differently, within context, not necessarily the traditional campus context, but a more distributed campus context, as an important differentiator that provides our students with very practical and very well fit skills to the environment in which they have to apply them. We see the in-company application, regional specificity, kind of sensitivity and empathy as aspects that we have to emphasize further in our curriculum. And the overall project-based learning program that we have initiated at the graduate level is basically pointing to this direction.
Thank you, Veneta. Let me go and ask Alberto. Alberto, what do you think, and what do you think INCAE is going to position to do?
I think that Data and Pfeiffer are both right. It depends on which school we're talking about. I have high hopes that all 5 schools in this panel today, we're going to be in the data camp, and that we're going to be able to grow out of this stronger and better. But this is a terrible time to be conservative. And if you don't embrace change now, this thing may swallow you up whole. Yes, if you're gonna, for instance, you're gonna have people be in the same time at the same place for something, there better be a good reason. Mm-hmm. The reasons exist, and once we can do it, we're gonna keep doing it, because there's many reasons why you would want in education some things to be face-to-face and synchronous. But there's also a lot of moments in which online, asynchronous, hybrid models work better. We need to rethink our bigger programs so that we tailor make them to different students. Something that the technology makes a lot easier than traditional education. We need to add technology to the content of our programs much more than before, and the management of technology. And we need to add to our programs understanding our surroundings, or the student surroundings, as business decision makers, as a much bigger component of what they learn how to do, and as the pandemic is demonstrating to our graduates. I think that those of us that were already in that process of change are, in a way, well, of course, worried about what's going on and so forth, but we're embracing the direction in which things are going, because the wind seems to be taking us a little bit harsher than we wanted to the place where we wanted to be. But I do believe, on the other hand, that sadly, for many schools throughout the world, Pfeiffer might be right, and those schools that don't embrace the change and don't lead towards it might actually have a very tough time surviving.
Very well, Alberto. Now, Ignacio, Alberto said it is a terrible time to be conservative. What do you think about that statement in the context of what we talk about, the two different school of thoughts? Ignacio?
Yes, actually, I love it. And I was writing a couple of ideas while Alberto and Veneta were sort of speaking up here. I call this being an attack mode. And I mean, this is the time to be in attack mode and to show it. I believe neither Jeffrey nor Shrikran have a crystal ball, so we really don't know what the future will look like. And also, I'm concerned if we want to compare with Stanford HBS, which, you know, believe to a different world, and they have a complete different situation. I mean, they play in a different league, not in terms of quality. The schools in Latin America are really in principle in the offering of quality, but in the cultural, economic, social endowment related circumstance. So, as I mentioned before, we definitely are attack mode. We were, for the last few years, trying to reinvent what we wanted to be. And this is not something unexpected. I mean, it was unexpected in the form of a pandemic, but definitely the transformation of our industry was something that we all knew it was coming, and it was happening, and it was a matter of time. So we are in attack mode, and we are supporting our communities, students, enterprises, supporting, as I mentioned before, the emergence of a more conscious way of doing business in our world. And this means transforming what we do. Better students, better faculty, better programs, shorter, more specialized, multidisciplinary, degree, non-degree, deliver through digital, through hybrid. Of course, face-to-face is still very valid. We see a future that we need to invent. And in Latin America, we need to invent our own future for business education. And it will be similar, but not equal to that future in the States, in Europe, or in Asia.
Thank you, Ignacio. So Ignacio is all in attack mode and to invent the future. Peter, I want to hear from you since ESAN has always been crowned as the Stanford in Lima, Peru. So what's your thought? Which school of thought you're gonna go after?
Yeah, I like the top mode. So, but I like to say that I agree with both. I got two methods. One method is to reinvent ourselves. Many of them will be out of business. Higher education have changed a lot. We have new generation Y, Generation Z, and other important issue that, as I mentioned before, the competition has increased to exponential level. We have seen new business models that have appeared based on live platforms like I mentioned, Udemy, Coursera, edX. So it's important for business school to ask themselves if we are doing the right thing, if we have to change. If we are understanding new signals, are we really? Many questions comes to me, Joanne. Are we really teaching our future leader to be aware of this new environment? We doing research that really have impact and relevance to our community. For example, now pushing to publish many papers. There are many academic articles, but probably nobody reads. More than very important for our society, for in the case group, that if we're doing research, must have impact and must have relevance. On the other hand, I agree with Dr. about a hybrid model, because technology, I love technology, and I think that technology is part of the school of life, and the digital student, I call digital student because the new generation is coming, and we have probably to negotiate the format that is more appropriate for them, and they will choose according his time and his place. But of course, we don't know the future. There is still much to learn, but I am sure the message that I get from those things is that business school must change. Business school probably must be in attack mode, must be agile, adaptable, and must be resilient. Probably we used to be like an old system, big elephant, so we probably have to change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Stay agile, changes in our DNA. Let me turn the floor to Jerry for the next question, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is very lively, most enjoyable. One of the questions that I have, talking about changing business schools, Alberto, I really appreciated your comments with regard to the role of the business school in society. I think that's emerging more and more as a key theme internationally. But looking ahead specifically, what role do you see the private sector, specifically in your area of the world, the multinationals and the multilatinas, playing in business school education, other than serving as a source of employment for graduates and a source of students for executive education programs? Any one of the deans who wishes to take that?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I think that throughout the last few years, one thing that we have learned is that, while of course we welcome the students that want to work for these large companies, or the students that are coming from those companies to take executive education, that the deeper relationships with particular companies, large and small, is what we are benefiting the most from, and where they are getting the most benefit. Relationships where rather than two ships passing on the sea, right? And I jump into your seminar and then I get out, but rather when we plan together your company development, your staff development, where we see the needs that may be in your company and we find the right student for that, or the right program, ours or others, where we can advise your staff to go, where your strategy and your reality and your human capital needs are all on the table, so we can have an influence on all three, and in particular where the first two can determine what do we do for you educationally. I think that kind of relationship has gotten much better. It's interesting to me that some of the companies that do this with us also start involving us into their decisions about how to influence society, about their corporate social responsibility, about their role in the world, about sustainability, and all these things begin to mesh. So I believe that hopefully we can move into a type of relationship with companies in which, of course, we continue providing on a need-based basis services to those that have always been our clients, but we can actually go the company out of the relationship with us, and what makes the school better out of the relationship with them.
Well said. Ignacio, Peter, Veneta, your comments.
Yep.
Role of
Yeah,
these companies, your relationship to them.
Surely, I can add something to the stated already by Alberto. I mean, we cannot keep thinking about the future of education without partnering in a much deeper and sensible way with enterprises. And of course, this might be Latin American, this might be multinationals, multilatins, SMEs, medium-sized, large. And how do we do that? This is the key issue. Today, we use two models in which they provide with a very nice sense of partnership. They hire from us. They send the students to our executive education programs. Here and there, we work together in some research projects, and that's pretty much it. And this is not enough. And as an example of something that can be done here is how do we increase the weight of the private and public sector into our business education sector. We launched a couple of years ago something we call Tech 21st. It's a new educational model. And very briefly, we have professors and we have labs. Our labs for the business school are companies in Latin America. Again, might be multinationals or Latinas, or you name it. We do have in 1.5 years, 400. They design the programs together with our faculty. They use corporate examples. They do some teaching, and our students do solve some corporate challenge. That is very helpful also for our partnering companies. On top of that, we do the classic thing, of course. And one more thing. We partner at least in Mexico, in a very powerful movement with mostly the private sector. The public is starting to get on board of this in changing the value proposition for our societies coming from the partnership between education and companies. This means we created a Center for Sustainable Growth and Conscious Business, and we see more and more engagement from companies in understanding that doing business is important. Maximizing the shareholder return is critical, but it doesn't work unless you sustain this with having a more positive impact in societies like the ones we live, with poverty, with injustice, with corruption, with lack of opportunities, with poor educational systems. So this is our role as business schools in changing our societies, I firmly believe. Sorry for being a bit long here.
No, not at all. Veneta, your comments.
Alberto,
would you like to comment?
Already advanced. I would like to talk a bit about the role of business schools together with engineering schools and design schools and all the other schools that basically make up for the very rich university environment that we live in. And I believe that when we talk about the most competitive companies in our region, which are the multinational companies, certainly we partner with these other schools at the university level to provide the partnerships that Ignacio mentioned in his exposition. And this is this kind of extremely rich university environment that we provide and that we basically introduce to the overall university system that makes us as business schools unique as partners of the most competitive companies from the region. And this is basically the direction that we have taken. And we have started partnering under a system of subscription that gives access of this particular very large, very competitive companies to our labs, to our research centers, and among them to our business centers, and such as, for example, the Center for Sustainable Finance that we launched just a few months ago, and we already have a strong sponsorship for it, and also for the Center for Sustainable Development Goals, that is the Regional Center for Sustainable Development Goals for Latin America, is based at Universidad de los Andes. So all these centers that work as crossroads for the university ecosystem are basically created in companion with the private sector, and it's us as a school of management who basically make the interaction work and make it fluent. This is the way I think we are moving ahead in the next years as partners.
And Peter? We have to unmute Peter. Good.
Hello?
You hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I like the word partnership because it means collaboration. Even though the situation in Peru, let me talk about Peru, in Peru has been one of the in the world more than 100 days. The GDP collapsed to around 18% in the first half of the semester. More than 1 million jobs were lost. So the private sector was impacted very hard.
This is an embarrassment.
Some have been, however, besides of this situation, there have been initiatives such as donations of masks, oxygen by some companies. Most are individual, academic. So I think the relationship between the private sector and academia must be strengthened in both directions. So I think that there is a great opportunity of the online platform. We can have participation of top executives in the classes, and they can share experiences about the management under this new context. The business school can help the private sector by helping to solve their problems. We can provide advice, practical research, and bring the problems to the classes to be solved by our students. For example, we have implemented something that we have called challenge-based learning. So the problems that the multi-Latinas or multinational have, we bring to the classes, and our students compete to solve the problem. So in such a way that we can help those companies.
Very good. Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah. Finally, I like to say that probably we are very concerned to the partnership between the private sector and the academia. But I think the collaboration must be among the private sector, the public sector, and the academia. That's the way to move on.
Thank you very much. So let me ask the next question. It seems like the four deans been sharing with us is to demonstrate they're actually very bold. Like Ignacio was talking about, we're in the attack mode, right? So I cannot let this opportunity pass me by. So let me start by asking the four deans. So what do you regard as one of the, or some of the most innovative and trend-setting development in curriculum, teaching modality, and technology in graduate business education? Let me start by asking Veneta. Veneta?
The emphasis on building businesses for a conscious planet is something that has been very high on our agenda, and that has made us very proud in terms of how we innovate in our curriculum. So in this program, which we developed for our executive MBA, Joanne, we partner with a major consultancy, global consultancy company that provides us with basically top of the line networking opportunity for our students to interact with board of directors members of the top companies in the region. And they jointly developed career, basically strategic options and plans for key sectors of the economy and the companies that make a part of it. So in sum, it's a course. It's an executive MBA level course with embedded networking opportunity at the highest level in terms of the professional network of our students, and a learning opportunity that happens on basically the boundary of what management looks like when we bundle it with environmental topics, social consciousness, and best practice in governance. This is how I would say the boldest experiment in terms of curriculum looks like at Uniandes at the moment.
I'm sure the students really appreciate this kind of a bold step to be connected, have a network opportunity, and be very careful about the environment and be conscious about the society. This is actually a very cool innovation over there. Let me go to ESAN. Peter, what do you think about Veneta's idea? And what do you regard as the most innovative and trend-setting changes in curriculum and also technology and teaching modality?
Yeah. I love technology, so I will start with talking about the adoption of technology, adoption of something that I call disruptive technology. Now, we are talking a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, big data, digital transformation, cybersecurity, that will be part of the life of companies to create value. So every student must understand these technologies to create value for the companies. There is something that now business schools are working to create, to develop a curriculum related to those technologies. I agree with Veneta that there is a greater concern for sustainability. I would like to add something that is important now because of the pandemic. Corruption, problems of corruption. So I think that we have to be more, there's more concern about also teaching business ethics. But I think we have a big day for our society to probably to teach more about those topics related to business ethics. Something that I have mentioned before that is also very important, and that's just started in Latin America, is that there's a greater focus on lifelong learning. Many schools have started to adopt the lifelong learning approach, because change is inevitable, and the relation between the student and the school does not end when they finish. So we have the opportunity to provide new knowledge to our business community and to our alumni, and the relationship between the school and the alumni be forever. We used to be the best partners, the best friends. Thank you.
Very good, Peter. So interesting, because I think most of our business colleagues here will agree that big data, cybersecurity, AI are now the regular jargon in business education. But Peter, you mentioned about corruption, business ethics, which is really something that most of business dean for 10, 20 years try to organically grow, and maybe we're not doing as well as we thought we did. Let me hear about Ignacio. What do you think about what Peter said? What could be the trend setting? Are we going back to the original? Are you something that you believe that is going to be exceptionally groundbreaking, innovative? Ignacio?
I love that, definitely. I think the situation of business schools in Latin America is, as I mentioned before, completely different from other geographies. And in terms of innovation, it's not that it's nice for us to be innovative, to think out of the box. It's that we need it. It's that we need it in our everyday, changing our business model, being more impactful to our communities that are suffering, struggling before the pandemics for economic reasons, for social injustice, for many things that were mentioned today. The pandemics just accelerated this even more. So it's not an option for us not being innovative. And Veneta was giving some tips, and I'm sure we all do amazing things here. For us, it was very simple. When we were thinking in March 12th, when we decided to go online and move our 19,000 students at the Business School at Tecnológico de Monterrey and 2,000 at EGADE Business School online, and we were sort of rethinking a little bit our portfolio that has been severely changed over the last 3 years, we changed our mindset and we said, listen, we were thinking that if we do this, we're going to cannibalize our own offering. We need to do that. We need to cannibalize ourselves before someone else is coming and do this. And this might be another business school. This might be the Google or the Netflix of education in the future. So this is a little bit our mindset today. Something we did 1 year ago was created a spin-off. I mean, we belong to institutions, universities. We are not the most innovative corporations in the world. And I think we are all aware of that. It takes a long time to move things and to change. And it might be like this, and sometimes it's nice. So we created a spin-off with a much more entrepreneurial mindset for creating our new portfolio and offering in the next 5 years. We call this Alternative EGADE, and they have some budget, they have some empowerment, and they have a mission to fail. Because we understand that if they don't fail, they won't succeed. So they sort of breeding our portfolio with different products. Might be micro-credentials, micro-masters. We're working on the Netflix MBA. I mean, things that are adding value to the audiences we do serve. So this is how we face in innovation. Not something nice to have, but a must-have if we want to keep impacting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ignacio. That's kind of like adopting an entrepreneurial mindset to fail early, fail quickly. We will adapt as we go. That's fantastic. Let's hear from Alberto. What about INCAE as a leader in Costa Rica higher ed?
I think that first of all, I would echo a lot of what was said by my colleagues. I would say all of the above. But I think that the more exciting thing that has happened in the last few years is noticing how virtual instruments and digital instruments can be used intelligently in education. At the beginning, it was, okay, let's reach with this a public that cannot be in the classroom, which already meant something pejorative, right? We're trying to reach online. Let's reach with something cheaper or with something more convenient, the people that cannot go through the real thing. Then you have to understand that you have to go through the process that many of your other programs also have to go online, among other things, for the pandemic. But along the way, we began developing tools that make the hybrid idea a much stronger one. I'm going to mention one example, which is a number of simulations some for classroom use, and some that are course long and that are part of the education process, and that along with the case method, give this experience participant-centered education a little bit more meaning. So I'm very happy, for instance, about one simulation that we do in operations, in which during the entire operation sequence, the students are playing this app and getting their company to be more and more efficient as they incorporate the things that are learning in the class, right? And it's actually a really cool game. Even if you're not taking the course, it's actually much better than most of the games you can play. And we made another simulation for policy purposes. At INCAE, we are the global headquarters for the Social Progress Initiative of the World Economic Forum. We actually do number crunching for that. And then we made this like SimCity kind of thing where the student is a policymaker and she has a bunch of instruments, a bunch of buttons she can push, and how the social progress of the little society that she's running in the computer is the objective of the game. And we've used that not only in MBA courses, but also in stuff for policy courses. We even had a TV channel, but we didn't do it in the end. We thought it was a little bit too game showy. Asked us if we could have the candidates in the last election to play the game and see how they did. My guess is that the guy who won the election is also the guy who won the game, but that's a different story altogether. But the thing is, this type of simulation, I think, which is there are very good reasons for us to be all in the same place at the same time in order to transfer education or to produce education. But there are also many good things that you can do asynchronously, not as a cheap substitute for being in the classroom, but rather because the technology opens a door, empowers something that the classroom didn't. And the speed at which these things have been developing in the last few years, the way in which they accelerated like crazy during the pandemic, and the way in which I believe that once we come back to quote unquote normality, in the new normality, they're going to be way more important. I think that that's a very exciting aspect of education in which companies, I'm sure business schools, that embrace change, as Ignacio said, and that dare to experiment and they dare to invent and dare to risk are going to be able to lead the transition. And I really believe we're going to be one of them. I'm pretty sure that the other three schools in the panel are going to be part of it. And I think that is going to be really cool how 10 years down the line, the whole process of teaching people is going to be dramatically different, and I think for the better.
That's a very aspirational discussion, Alberto. Thank you so much. Now, I don't know whether I can see Jerry here. Jerry, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, fantastic.
As you all know, I've been having problems with WebEx today.
And okay, well, Jerry, I can actually take over because there are actually quite a few questions from the audience. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put aside some of the prepared questions. I'm going to throw the four deans a curveball. We have a participant asking this, actually a very good question. They said, well, this is the second pandemic affecting the business world in Latin America. And she or he meant referring to the populist movement that often perceive private business as the enemy of the people. What can business school in Latin America, such as yours, to do to encounter this kind of perception and to position business education as a source of progress and individual freedom, capable of providing and promoting social mobility in our countries? So let me open the floor and ask which dean. All right, Ignacio volunteered to answer that first. Go ahead, Ignacio.
Thank you. I volunteered. I found that an amazing question. And I sort of agree with some of the contents in the question. I think business and school have been sort of accomplices of some situation that let's say, verge of capitalism and democracy got us into. What I'm saying is capitalism is a great way of organizing business. Democracy is the best way of organizing governments. And together got us, as Steve Pinker, the Harvard philosopher, states, to the best stage in the human history development. So we are now, before pandemic, and probably even with the pandemic, in the more developed, richer, absence of wars and conflicts. And this is where we are. Now, do we believe this is enough? We still have, let's look at Latin America. Let's look at Mexico. I'm inspired myself, but I live in Mexico. I love this country. And Mexico is facing a alarming situation. 60 million people lives under poverty, according to United Nations, not to myself. We have 70 million people without a formal employment. We're struggling with violence, corruption, injustice, all these type of things. If we look at the Forbes 20 business list in Mexico in the last 20 years, guess what? Same companies richer. So is this capitalism? Is this the right capitalism that we want to really bring into perpetuation? And that was the discussion about what my colleague said before. How can we, from business schools, instead of following blindly the Adam Smith or the Milton Friedman's paradigms, change them and start thinking that making money is absolutely necessary. Without profitability, there are no states, no taxes, no hospital, no public education, you name it. But it's not enough. And let's look at where we are in many geographies in the world. So we need an opportunity as business school and educators. Here is the biggest one we can face.
Ignacio, I'm very heartened by your discussion, and I can hear the passion and the compassion of changing a situation. So let me go to Alberto, and then I'll go with Peter and Veneta.
Thanks. I think that we have to be the change. If I have to pick a political system, I would pick democracy, but there are countries where democracy is better than others, and a democracy can be improved. You have to pick an economic system. I would pick a market economy, but there's market economies that function for their societies and others that do less well. And in Latin America, while getting to have democracy and a market economy was a step forward in the past, we didn't do it gung-ho, right? We didn't go all the way, and we should have gone all the way to better democracies and to better market economies. And to a large extent, it depends on leadership. So if our students are going to be in the next generation, like they have been in the past generation, the business leaders in this region, then they have to come out of our schools having been not only educated on, but also immersed into matters of sustainability and social progress and transparency and fight for corruption and business ethics. And this has to be something that is very strong in their training. If we want them to be better able to help society as a whole, they need to have the tools to understand society as a whole and not only how to serve the formal segment of society, right? And that has to be a big part of it. We have to be more inclusive. 80% of our students come on with financial aid. And the biggest part of my job and Enrique's job is to fundraise to be able to make that number higher. And that means that what you need to come to the best school in the region is not, a small region. What you need to do to get is not to have a lot of money, is to have the talents and the opportunities so that between your savings and credit and what we give you, you can come. And that changes the classroom, and that changes their experience, and that changes who they are outside. This also means that our research has to be related to what the region needs. And of course, a good part of our faculty are going to be doing pure research, the kind that they would do if they were in the North. And that's great because we need that for a number of reasons, and we need them to be like that for a number of reasons. But a lot of our research has to be applied to the programs to the problems of the region, and it has to be practical, and we have to go into that. And our consulting programs in our courses and our entrepreneurship programs have to actually make the difference. And we do have a responsibility because all 4 schools here, we hold inside our walls a lot of the expertise of our regions in topics that are key for society as a whole. So we need to assign a lot of that expertise, a good chunk of that expertise, not only to changing our students' lives, but also to changing society. And I think that over the years, we've been doing that in different ways. And now we have to learn a new way to do it for a new world.
Thank you, Dean, for all the passion you put in to do fundraising. I'm certain a lot of students believe that attending INCAE is their big dream. And thank you for all the hard work for doing that. Now, let me go with Peter. What do you think, Peter, about the question from our audience?
Yeah, thank you. It was a very interesting question. There is something that came to me that was an important question for all teams. We are, as a business school, are teaching on the right direction to form good leaders. For me, probably the answer is not. We have much work to do. One key word is sustainability. So probably we have to be more focused on sustainability to form sustainability managers to be careful, because we have to introduce many topics related to sustainability to form leaders who care of our society. Sector. But normally we are providing tools to our students only to be efficient in finance, to be good in accounting, in IT, but probably we have to change the way we are teaching. We have to change the way we are doing research, as Ignacio mentioned and all my colleagues mentioned. We have to do research that having impact for our business community. So only in that situation, probably the community will see, oh, business school leaders, managers are doing the good for our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Let me quickly go to Veneta. I know that Ariana said that our time is running out. We have so many questions, but I want to hear from Veneta how she responds to this question from the audience.
Thank you, Joanne. I would respond complimenting my colleagues on this discussion. And I would say that our classrooms, being a school of management, are pretty diverse to start with. We have Army generals, we have government officials, of course, we have business leaders. So it's quite a mixture that we get in our classroom. And I think one of the most important outcomes that is born in the debates is the realization that, in fact, change comes when we all basically take on our responsibility and walk this extra mile that we need to walk. So it's not that it's just us that we have to change and do something. There are many other actors that need to also invest in being more informed and select their sources of information. And I believe it's a partnership, and it's a game of trust. So what I would say is that we are in a unique position to be a trusted partner for different stakeholders in a society. And this is our, I believe, unique historical moment, because we all believe we need to come together as we feel more interdependent than ever. And I believe we should take the advantage and really make good use of the moment and make these stakeholders sit and talk and build the trust-based relations that have been lacking for many decades in the whole region. And that will be my answer. We need a plan Marshall led by the academia, and that should be focused on trust building across different societal stakeholders. And I think we are called into this role, and we should take on it soon.
Thank you, Veneta. And I must apologize to the audience. I know that you submitted a lot of questions. And like you, I really enjoyed this fantastic panel of deans. And I heard a panel of deans that is full of big dreams, bold vision, but yet they have a very defined and articulated strategy to execute changes. And I feel very comforted by their leadership. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor to Maria.
I really wanted to thank first Joanne and Jerry, since we said first names. This panel has been fantastic, and Veneta, I think your closing statement is exactly right on point. Thank you, Veneta, Ignacio, Alberto, and Peter. It is extremely important. What we see in our organization is we've hosted about at least 200 programs in the last 6 months. And definitely it's time for collaboration and adaptation. And what you mentioned, Veneta, is we have to take advantage. And something else that really called my attention is, yes, the deans of these schools here hold really the next generation of leaders. And so we have to think about how we work to get to the other side in a more efficient and a great way for society. So I think, Dean Lee, as you said, unfortunately, we did have a lot of questions. So I think the good news is we're going to have to do part 2 of this program, and would love to maybe have a conversation offline, because as a membership-based organization, we have 240 multinational, multi-Latina companies. And as I hear you and the conversation, I think there's a lot of interesting projects perhaps we could do. So thank you, everyone. And I think we will have to have a part 2 of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean
Thanks.
Lee. Thank you,
Bye.
Jerry.
Thank
To
you.
all the
everybody.
deans.
So much.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.